Oh boy. All right, we are live. And we are talking about the alternatives to Ozempic. Sweet. I think we pretty much got her. Ooh, I definitely do not want to do that. That is my bad. All right, what is going on, you beautiful people? It is Wednesday. It is almost Thanksgiving here in Canada. Very exciting. This whole week's been a little bit messy, I think, from like the having kind of the extra somewhat of a day off, but not a day off and such. But such is life, and here we are. So I'm excited to be here, and yeah, we'll kind of kick things off here in like 2 seconds as we chat or we chitty chat about the alternatives to Ozempic if you happen to be on it and can't no longer get it or what have you, or if you're just looking at other potential options in terms of, I think it can also be not only weight management, but also diabetes management. So I will give it like 1 more minute here. Williams Abina, hello, how are you? Cool. That is that. Awesome. All right, so we might as well just dive into it and I give you guys the full rundown. So what we're really talking about here is if you are currently on Ozempic in particular, and what are the potential alternatives for it. So obviously Ozempic, Wegovy, Mounjaro, pretty much all of them have been reaching an unprecedented demand and have been shorted. We didn't think we were going to get the shortage up here in Canada, but it now has occurred with Ozempic. We can still get the red 0.25, 0.5 milligram pens, but we can't get the 1 milligram pens at present. It's supposed to be alleviated sometime mid-October is kind of what we've been told. Again, I'll believe it when I see it. Apparently, we may also be getting the 2 milligram Ozempic pens at that point in time, but lots of unknowns and things that we're not really sure about. So obviously in the interim, we're having a lot of people that are wondering what are the next steps, what can they do, how do they keep going, and what have you. So let's dive in. In terms of why the shortages and stuff like that are happening, first off, it is definitely an unprecedented demand. Obviously, there's been a lot of popularity, a lot of press, a lot of things around that where people have been wanting to get on medications like Ozempic, Wegovy, and Mounjaro because of the dramatic results that we are seeing with them in terms of weight management. Unfortunately, when it comes to weight loss and weight management, yes, obesity is a chronic and progressive disease, and many people still need it, just like individuals that have diabetes also need these medications. But as with anything that happens in the weight loss industry, if there is something that is new and shiny and stuff and may potentially lead to weight loss, people jump all over it. So a lot of people have been looking to get on it, and that has been largely what has led to a big demand, and ultimately the supply has not been able to keep up. And the issues have been ranging from not able to get the actual molecule of semaglutide to the pens and devices and stuff like that, not having all the components and parts for it, to not being able to get access to the preservatives and various other agents that are used to suspend the drug in the solution and that sort of thing. So a lot of different things really kind of stemmed all from the whole COVID thing and the evergreen and blocking the channel down there in Central America. So it's just been all these compounding things that have kind of lined up and given the perfect storm. So we are looking at what are the kind of ways that we can resolve it, and how we can help people to continue on with their weight management journey, whether they're managing their weight, managing their blood sugars, those sorts of things. What are the things that we're looking at and trying to help them with? So one of the initial strategies that I've been looking at with people is, since we're hopeful that we will get the medication back here in mid-October, for some individuals, it's been a matter of just reducing their dose down. So for example, if they're at 1 milligram once a week of Ozempic, what we've been doing is just bringing it down to say 0.5 milligrams. So if they have a 1 milligram pen, it'll extend out a couple more weeks. They'll get a couple more doses out of it. Similarly, they might be able to go down in dose and be just on one of these pens, and since we have it up here in Canada, and that's able to kind of bridge them through until we have a better idea of when we're going to get the 1 milligram pens back, and then we can go up on the dose. Again, this might not work for everybody. Some people might need the 1 milligram dose or even higher. So that might not necessarily be an option. Other things that we've been looking at, Rybelsus has been kind of one that's been coming up. So for those of you that don't know, Rybelsus is semaglutide. It is the exact same molecule that is found within Ozempic and Wegovy. It is just in the oral formulation. So the big thing with this is that you take a tablet once a day. It has to be on an empty stomach with no more than 250 mils of water and no food. If you take it with food or with too much water, or even if you take double the dosage, there's a very good chance you won't actually absorb any of the semaglutide that is found within the tablet. So it is an option that people have been potentially switching over to. It's been more individuals that say have diabetes we've been looking at versus the weight management side of things. If we look at kind of a comparison in terms of efficacy and potency and stuff, Rybelsus 14 milligrams is the max dose that's currently on the market, and that's equivalent to about 0.5 milligrams of Ozempic once a week. So not as potent, obviously, as the 1 milligram and even higher, but that's kind of a rough ballpark line that we can kind of look at. And certainly that's been one that we've been kind of talking to people about and kind of switching them over to the Rybelsus, again, to bridge them for the month until we have a better idea of where things are going to go from there. Obviously, with any of this advice and stuff like that, or any switching of medications, please continue to follow up with your family doctor to make sure that you are getting the proper and sound advice from them. So other ideas and stuff that we look at are switching over to Saxenda. Saxenda is a pretty easy switch in the sense that Saxenda was the first GLP-1 receptor agonist that got approval for obesity and weight management up to a dose of 3 milligrams a day. That one's a pretty easy jump. Basically, if you say took your dose of Ozempic today, you would then start the Saxenda 1 week from now on your regular dosing schedule. The downfall of it is that you do have to take it daily. Overall, Saxenda isn't as potent as Ozempic in terms of the weight management effects. Again, some people it works really well and can be a very supportive tool, kind of definitely in the interim and ongoing. But it is the once daily injection, which some people may or may not like. And if you're looking at kind of the dose switching algorithm side of things, generally, if you're on, say, 0.5 or 1 milligram of Ozempic, you probably would be fine to go to 3 milligrams a day of Saxenda. Again, it's going to vary person to person, especially if you had like real problems getting up to, say, 1 milligram of Ozempic, you had a lot of side effects, then you probably want to just back off a little bit with the Saxenda. It's better to be safe than sorry. Start at a lower dose and move your way up. That's definitely one that we can look at there. So what we have so far is Ozempic or Wegovy to Rybelsus, which is semaglutide, or one of those guys over to Saxenda. The other option that I've been looking at for people is switching people over to Trulicity. Trulicity is kind of one that's only been used for diabetes management. It only has the approval for diabetes management. The one thing with Trulicity and why it really hasn't been sought after as a weight management medication, because it is a GLP-1 receptor agonist like Ozempic and Saxenda. The problem is that we think with Trulicity, the molecule is considerably larger than the Ozempic and the Saxenda. So the GLP-1 molecule and makeup of the actual molecule seems to be quite a bit larger and ultimately doesn't allow for it to be taken up into the blood-brain barrier very well. And ultimately what that means is that we don't get as much action on that primal brain in reducing your drive, your wanting, and appetite and that sort of thing. So that's kind of one piece that we bump into in that respect. But it still can be an effective option, especially if you have the diabetes and are trying to manage your blood sugars. That would be one that I would more look to helping and switching people over to. The max dose of Trulicity in both Canada and the US is 4.5 milligrams once a week. So there is an opportunity to go up on the dose for it to be more effective and to get more bang for our buck, if you will. Overall, though, on the weight management side of things, it's definitely probably going to be more of a weight maintenance side of things versus really promoting as much weight loss as what we might see with Ozempic or Wegovy. All right, I'll quickly pop in. So yeah, a couple of questions coming in. Sweet, we will jump to those in a second. I guess quickly with the Trulicity, to kind of give you guys some perspective on it. Trulicity is once weekly, like Ozempic and Wegovy. In terms of switching over to those guys, you would go from Ozempic or Wegovy. Say if you did your last dose of it today, you would then take, in 1 week from now, take your Trulicity dose, and voila, you would kind of continue on your way and hopefully get your results and keep on going. Alternative, now this is more going to apply to Canada. The US technically already has Mounjaro. Mounjaro is available, but has been shorted down in the US. The very exciting news up here in Canada is that Mounjaro will be available the first week of November 2023. So that is kind of one that we've been looking at in terms of waiting for it to come to market. It has been approved on the diabetes front of things. It hasn't been approved here in Canada for weight management. It also hasn't been approved in the US for obesity management, but it's like right on the cusp of getting those approvals. I think in the US, it'll probably get it before the end of 2023. Canada, it'll happen in 2024. Regardless, it is another option that we are certainly looking at. Because here in Canada, we've gotten the word that the drug company, they've ramped up production and they're ultimately going to be bringing it to market up here with a sufficient supply to hopefully not run out or anything like that. So that is definitely going to be an exciting one here in Canada. Again, a once weekly injection is very similar to Wegovy and Ozempic, except it has another little component where it binds to a GIP receptor. And basically what the GLP-1 and the GIP receptor do is they work synergistically to not only provide additional benefit on blood sugar management, but also providing benefit above and beyond what we see with Wegovy and Ozempic at the top dose. So I guess to kind of break it into more numbers, with Wegovy or Ozempic at a dose of 2.4 milligrams once per week, what we found is that on average, 15% of people, or no, a majority of people lost 15% of their weight from baseline. With Mounjaro, what we found is that at the top dose of 15 milligrams once per week, a majority of people lost 20% of their weight from baseline. So definitely an increase in that efficacy on the weight management side of things. Also an increase in terms of the blood sugar management side of things. It led to about a 2% A1C reduction. So very effective at what it does. There's been some reports that it has less side effects than Wegovy and Ozempic. Again, we'll have to kind of wait and see. I need to get a bit more experience with it. From the trials, I'm not really seeing it, but maybe, if anything, it's probably going to be pretty mild. We still need to start at a low dose and titrate our way up. So that's kind of the big exciting one that we're looking at here in Canada. Again, it's not till November 1st, but if we have an ongoing shortage with Ozempic, definitely looking at switching people over to Mounjaro as a possible option. The one caveat that's going to be different than what's seen in the US is that Mounjaro usually comes in a single injector type pen. It doesn't look like the Ozempic pens. It's a little bit different, but the pens and devices are shorted in terms of the Mounjaro side of things. And so what they've actually are doing here in Canada is they're coming out with single dose vials that don't have any preservative. They basically are just a sealed vial that has your single dose of, say, 5 milligrams of Mounjaro. You're going to have to draw it up old school with kind of like a tiny little insulin needle and then do the injection into the abdomen. It should all be pretty straightforward and such like that. But that's kind of one of the key differences that they have come out up here. Eventually, it will go to, it's probably actually going to be, I'm kind of hearing reports of like a multi-dose pen. So Ozempic currently is a multi-dose pen. Wegovy is a single dose pen. So what Mounjaro is talking about is a multi-dose pen in the future, once all the components and parts are available and they can start putting it back into a pen as well. They don't have the preservative, so that's the other component they need. And so bringing that all together will eventually have kind of a more succinct and easier injection device and system. But in the interim, they're bringing it to market as single dose vials, starting off at 2.5 milligrams once a week and titrating your way up. So that's kind of the exciting part of that one. It looks like a majority of drug plans that are private will cover Mounjaro at this point in time. It's probably going to need, special authorization and other paperwork to be completed, but it'll only provide coverage for those individuals that have diabetes and will not provide coverage for obesity management, at least not yet. That indication will be coming, like I said, probably 2024 for Canada and late 2023 for the US. So that is the other big exciting one that we're looking at. Other possible options that we could consider and take into account would be possibly switching people over to Contrave. Contrave is a combination of bupropion and naltrexone. Bupropion is a norepinephrine dopamine reuptake inhibitor. Basically, it's going to decrease your wanting and drive for food, helping to regulate that appetite. It also can help with things like attention, focus, and that sort. The naltrexone component within it kind of beefs up what the bupropion aspect is doing. It also may play a role in kind of your liking of food. So, you see the cookie on the table, kind of what that cookie should taste like. You decide to have that cookie, but that cookie doesn't taste as good as what you want it to. So you're less likely to maybe have that cookie next time. Kind of the idea around it. Overall, though, Contrave, it's really hit and miss. Some people works like a hot damn, other people not so much. On average, people lost about 5 to 8% of their weight from baseline. So not too bad of results. You're definitely going to get some of the health benefit side of it, but not as effective as what we have seen with Mounjaro, Wegovy, Ozempic, and such like that. But again, can be an option in the interim that isn't currently shorted. In the US, there's a couple other options from the phentermine and topiramate combination drugs and that sort of thing. Those ones can be quite effective. People do see about 10 to 12% weight loss with them over a year period. So again, another potential option. All of these altogether, though, are things that you need to talk with your care team about as possible options in switching. If you happen to be in the Alberta area, you can certainly book in with myself at my clinic, my pharmacist-led obesity clinic at Apothecare Pharmacy in Calgary, Alberta. You can give us a call, 403-993-6678. Book in with myself, and we can certainly review the potential options that might work for you. So I think that's pretty much got most of the options. I'm sure there's a couple other combinations and things out there that we can think of. But for now, I think that gives you a pretty good overview, hopefully. So we'll kind of answer some questions and take it from there. Super. So Jamie is saying, just got an email from our insurance restating that it is for type 2 diabetics only. So yeah, technically Ozempic only has the indication for type 2 diabetes. The molecule semaglutide, which is the molecule in Wegovy, technically has the indication for obesity management. So it has 2 indications if we were just looking at the individual molecule. Right now, insurance goes very much based on what the drug monograph is currently saying. So when we look at Ozempic and the drug monograph there, it says for diabetes. When we look at Wegovy, it says for obesity. Both of them contain semaglutide and such like that. So that's kind of that piece. Mounjaro or tirzepatide. Again, right now it just says for type 2 diabetes. Fortunately enough, Mounjaro just by itself, when it does get that indication, it sounds like it's going to be under the same drug name. They're not going to rebrand it like Novo Nordisk did. And so they'll keep it as Mounjaro, and ultimately it'll be the same molecule or same branding and all that kind of stuff. Tammy Morrison, Ozempic has made me only need my long-acting insulin and barely ever needing my fast-acting insulin. Awesome, Tammy. So that's kind of one of the fantastic things about these new molecules that are coming out, is that they're very effective at what they do. In terms of blood sugar management, that's primarily where those GLP-1 molecules are acting, is post-meal blood sugar management, because naturally our natural GLP-1 hormone gets released after we've had a meal. When food hits our stomach, GLP-1 hormone gets released from your small intestine, gets released from the L cells, and has all the various effects in terms of helping out your pancreas to produce more insulin, going to your liver and decreasing glucagon levels and how much sugar the liver is putting out, slowing down gastric emptying, and also working within the brain and decreasing your wanting and drive for food. So likely your portions and stuff like that are going to be less. So I just started Ozempic for weight management, and my insurance is now declining to cover my ongoing supply. Any suggestions? So the unfortunate thing is that if you're taking Ozempic for weight management, again, it is technically off-label. Wegovy, if you're in the States, would be the one that you would have to use and hopefully get covered by your insurance. In terms of Ozempic, unless you have diabetes and unless you've been on metformin, there's generally a few hoops that you have to jump through. Yeah, you won't be able to get coverage for it until either Wegovy becomes available, the insurance companies change something, or again, Mounjaro could be an option once it gets the indication for obesity and weight management. And Anne, I have not been able to get Saxenda since August. I keep checking, and today was told maybe November. So that's, super interesting. It's kind of, been kind of a domino effect of Ozempic went first, then Wegovy, then Mounjaro, and now Saxenda is going off market and stuff. Again, we haven't had that problem up here in Canada yet. It's been with Ozempic. So far, it doesn't look like we're going to have a similar issue, just because it doesn't look like there's been quite as much of a rush to switch people over and that sort of thing. We also haven't had Wegovy up here yet because of the shortages down in the States. So hopefully it won't happen, and I'm doubtful it will, because once Mounjaro comes to market, that'll probably be the big one that everyone gets switched over to. And ultimately we'll kind of move forward on that one, unless someone can't tolerate Mounjaro or what have you. And then Saxenda, well, we still have access to it, so we'd keep people going on it. So Terry, which GLP-1 causes less fatigue? I had so much fatigue with Ozempic. Really, really tough to say. When it comes to the fatigue aspect of these medications, there looks like there's a component where they can certainly, maybe the medication itself is causing fatigue. Again, we don't really have all the ins and the outs. There isn't really a mechanism that seems to demonstrate why that's the case. Since we don't really have a mechanism and kind of a patho or a mechanism as to how it's occurring and stuff, we don't really have any good information as to how to correct it or which ones we're more likely to get it with or not. It's really going to be individual to individual. Usually what we find, though, is that if you do get some at the start, it should subside over time. Other people, it's a matter of they went from eating quite a bit of food or a higher amount of calories to very little calories. And so then we need to work on the dietary patterns and that sort of thing to get more food and nutrition in them. And that certainly helps to curb it. But yeah, there's no real rhyme or reason as to which one causes the least amount of fatigue. If I had to kind of pick one, I would go with less potent ones. So Saxenda, Trulicity probably has less fatigue. Adalimumab is kind of definitely an older one that is much less potent, still okay for blood sugar management, but that would be one. So yeah, that's kind of that, I guess you could say. And Anne is asking, can I get Saxenda from a Canadian mail order pharmacy, and will they bill insurance from the US? I guess two parts to this question. First one's the easy one. They won't bill insurance from the US. You'd have to pay and submit. Probably then your US insurance wouldn't cover it then. But yeah, there definitely wouldn't be any billing because there's just different codes, different numbers, all that kind of stuff. And the Canadian mail order pharmacies that have been shipping to the US, they've been cracked down on pretty hard. So I'm doubtful that anybody's really sticking their neck out to be doing that. Plus you would need a Canadian physician to write the prescription for it and that sort of thing. So very unlikely you would be able to find a pharmacy that would be able to ship that stateside. And yeah, that would be kind of that. So hate to say it, but yeah, it definitely wouldn't maybe probably provide the best option, if you will. Sweet deal. All right. Lots of good questions, lots of good comments. 25 minutes. Always love it. We're about a half an hour. Pretty good crowd today. So definitely appreciated. We'll definitely be back next week. I can't remember what the topic is. I really should, read up on those before I come on these things, but here we are. It'll be on my Instagram at the official Dr. Dan. It will be posted up, so definitely come and check it out there. Other than that, always bring your questions. Always happy to answer them. And of course, if you ever have any questions after seeing this, it'll be uploaded on the video or on the YouTube here. Posting the question underneath. Some questions I see, there's quite a few questions that ultimately come through in my comment section every day. And being as busy as I am, I don't always see them or get to them, but we'll do my best to. So if you have questions, comments, drop them there. And you can also message me on Instagram or Facebook, and usually I'm pretty good about that one there as well. So definitely feel free to reach out, drop your questions below. And if you're in the Alberta area, come check me out at my clinic, and we can definitely see about helping you with various alternatives and other supports and stuff. So as always, people, have a great night, and we'll see you next week.